Give me pictures of Batgirl.
Why buy a comic that might cost more than a dime? Come meet the brothers who are here to waste your time.
Welcome back to the Dime Comic Bros podcast. It is just Jacob and I this week. Colin is... What even is Colin doing? Do you know?
Colin inherited a very large family inheritance. Now, this is private. This isn't going out to the public, just so you know. But, yes, Colin inherited a very large family inheritance, and he did what any sane 19-year-old white boy would do.
He's in Dubai.
He flew himself to the bone.
Nice.
He lands in about 12 hours in the Pacific Ocean, just off the coast.
Right next to Jeffrey Bezos.
Yes.
Jeffrey Bezos.
Jeffrey Bezos is actually going to pick him up in his own personal yacht, and they're going to share memories about
astronaut. Nice.
Astronaut.
Space boy.
I heart Uranus. Anyway, my name is Jacob. I'm joined by Spencer. We are usually three guys sitting around a microphone talking about comics and movies and TV shows and video games and music and whatever else our little hearts desire to talk about, because it's our show. We do what we want.
True. We do what we want. Unless Colin wants to have fun, and then we tell him no. Mostly me. I usually tell him no.
You usually do. I usually feed into it. I'm like the little spark that starts the fire.
True.
And then it just gets out of control.
More like the spark that lights up the septic tank.
Speaking of California.
Let's just jump into the news. It's a bat week.
This was not intentional.
No, it just all the news coalesced and it's all Batman stuff.
Coalesce.
Coalesce. It's a nice word.
Pretty sure that's a Hope for the Dying song.
Ooh, might be.
But anyway.
Have an article from thehollywoodreporter.com. J.K. Simmons is coming back to the Bat Beat. I hate it when articles do puns. The Oscar-winning actor is in negotiations to reprise the role of classic Batman character Commissioner James Gordon in Batgirl, Warner Bros. Feature for HBO Max that is casting up swiftly. So it's gonna be in DC EU canon. Spencer is happy.
Spencer pissed himself when he sent this in the chat.
Because originally they had said specifically, they're like, we're gonna recast it, and then it's like, oh, well, this is kind of lame. Because then they'd have to do another Gordon. And then we'd have 3 Commissioner Gordons right now. That's a bit much. 2 is fine. So, I'm happy with this decision. I like him. I thought that was good casting. I want to see more. Whatever they do with this Batgirl movie, I'm probably going to like it, to be honest. I just want Batgirl content. Like, she's great.
I was hoping they were going to cast Commissioner Yindel instead of Commissioner Gordon.
I mean, could you really do this movie without Jim, though?
I don't know.
Maybe not.
I just pulled that out of my ass on the spot.
Not even as Commissioner, but you gotta have him in the movie somewhere. And this means maybe we get more Batfleck. Moving on before I nut.
From cinemablend.com, DC fans were thrilled to learn that the Flash movie had started production and have been eager for any reports from the set. The most recent set photos debuted Batman's new Batcycle for the project, but it appears that vehicle was the catalyst behind an injury. Namely, a crew member allegedly collided with the Batcycle while filming across the pond. That doesn't read well. Namely, a crew member. No, there needs to be a name there.
Well, I mean, obviously, from further information, it was the cameraman.
An unnamed cameraman, namely.
Yeah.
The official report from Warner Brothers, released to CinemaBlend, reads, quote, an accident occurred while filming The Flash, where thankfully nobody was seriously hurt. The crew member involved received immediate medical attention as a matter of protocol. Oof, that's uncaring. We take the well-being of all our employees seriously and have strict health and safety procedures in place on all productions, end quote.
I watched the video of the aftermath, and they actually were very on top of it. Like, we didn't have footage of the incident itself, but it was like the ambulance was there instantaneously. They cleared out right off to the hospital. It was pretty impressive.
That's more caring than their statement makes it seem.
Well, yeah, because they want to be like, everything's good, it's all fine. Because set photos, you never know if they're set photos or set photos. You know, like they're paying somebody to leak photos because it's good publicity, or if it's actually just some random passerby. But the new Bat Cycle looks heckin' cool.
But for the company to come out and be like, we always care about our employees because that's what our freaking mission statement says we have to do, instead of, no, something happened and we were on top of it and they were in the hospital immediately. It just sounds way freaking too formal and uncaring.
I think it's probably just because they don't want to have like a, we know you can put a name behind who wrote it, versus this is just overall, this is the matter of fact what's going on, versus if you put out an official statement but it's clearly written by one person, you know, like and we care about X and this is exactly it. Just
This is the cookie cutter.
It's the company.
Something happened statement.
Yeah, at least some attention's getting thrown on it. I remember there was a couple of years ago there was a big lawsuit over one of the, I believe it was a stunt performer for Domino in Deadpool 2. I believe she
died.
Yeah, there was a huge lawsuit over that, and that
Yep.
came out after the movie came out, and
Right.
it was a huge. So I'm glad that they're putting more attention on this, which is good. And then there's something I just wanted to notate: the same stunt performer who gets to play who's Batfleck's stunt double is also the stunt performer for Robert Pattinson. The dude gets to wear 2 Bat costumes. That's pretty cool.
That is cool.
Yeah, it's pretty heckin' cool. Speaking of also heckin' cool, from DCComics.com. This December, 3-time New York Times bestselling artist Jacques from The Batman Who Laughs and Batman the Black Mirror brings his signature style to the blacked out streets of Gotham City in Batman One Dark Knight, that is Night with a K, a 3-issue prestige format miniseries from DC Black Label. Written and drawn by Jacques, the miniseries will debut in print and on participating digital platforms on Tuesday, December 7th, 2021.
You misread it. It is Batman One Dark Knight. Continue.
Canute. I think most readers know how much I love drawing Batman, so I was thrilled by the prospect of marrying the visual take of my own storytelling for Batman One Dark Knight, said Jacques. I wanted to tell a propulsive, tight action tale set over one typical night in Gotham City, except when a blackout strikes, it's a night that goes very, very wrong for Batman. I can't wait to share more with everyone soon. When a simple GCPD escort goes sideways, Batman finds himself on the wrong end of Gotham City in the middle of a heat wave with a supervillain in tow. Follow Batman as he traverses block by block across a pitch-dark Gotham City while dragging a highly difficult EMP to his permanent home at Blackgate Prison. The dark corners of Gotham City contain many surprises, and EMP plans to deliver many more shocks before the night is through. 1, that is the dopiest villain name, and I love it. 2, the art for this thing looks freaking amazing. Very dark.
This makes me think of, I believe, issue 3 of The Dark Knight Returns, where it blacks out and there's fires through Gotham.
Yeah.
I kind of have that as a mental picture, but I can imagine with this being drawn by Jock that it's going to be much darker and spooky and whatever else. I'm interested. And it's only 3 issues.
So one thing that I have 0 issues with this project. I'm actually looking forward to this immensely. This and Batman the Imposter are looking very interesting. You know, they're more actual unique stories, but also Black Label is basically just Batman, which is expected because it's DC. Everything's Batman, but I swear to God, 80% of the Black Label books are Batman books.
Oh yeah. We need
Get a little bit of variety, please.
Deathstroke,
Ooh.
Black Label,
Oh, yeah.
maybe a Swamp Thing,
And just anything.
Spook.
Literally anything.
I want scary stories.
Well, yes. They should be adult and scary. Or booby.
Nah, I just want scary.
What about scary booby?
Okay.
More Harley Quinn books, please.
What about Poison Ivy as a scary booby?
Could we get a proper sequel to Harleen with Poison Ivy in it with more scary booby? Maybe. Please do it.
Last piece of news, unless Spencer tacked one on without telling us like he usually does.
Nope. Last piece of news.
From DCComics.com. The first project to come out of the narrative podcast agreement between DC, Warner Brothers, and Spotify Batman Unburied is executive produced by David S. Goyer, The Dark Knight Rises, Man of Steel, The Sandman, and his company Phantom 4. Announced late last year, little was known about Unburied's story other than a promise that it would explore dark aspects of Bruce Wayne's psychology.
Ooh.
However, now we have our first synopsis teasing a much different take on the Dark Knight than what we've seen from Goyer in the past. Batman Unburied is a psychological thriller that takes us on a new journey deep into the mind of Bruce Wayne, introducing a slew of dark twists and turns with a number of classic Batman super hyper villains. Super hyphen villains. Dang it! Batman super hyphen villains.
We have such an ongoing joke of every little writing
Punctuation.
thing. We're very dumb.
I'm very punctual with my punctuation. When audiences meet Bruce Wayne, he is a forensic pathologist working in the bowels of Gotham Hospital and tasked with examining the victims of the Harvester, a gruesome serial killer preying on Gotham's citizens. Not only will the super-hero be forced to face his own mental demons, but he will also have to overcome them in order to save the citizens of Gotham as his alter-ego Batman. This has turned into more of a joke than I thought it would. Along with releasing the news synopsis, Spotify also made 2 intriguing casting announcements. Winston Duke, that's right, of Black Panther, Us, and Spencer Confidential fame, will lead the Batman Unburied cast as Bruce Wayne. He'll be joined by none other than Jason Isaacs, Harry Potter, the OA, Star Trek: Discovery, as Alfred, Bruce's unflappable butler and right-hand man.
I am super hyped for this, mostly based on the casting. Winston Duke is really freaking cool, and he has an excellent voice, and I think he's good fit for this, and also throwing Bruce Wayne into an actual role doing something instead of just being a rich prick is cool.
See, that was the part I got hung up on, was
Really?
Bruce Wayne being a forensic pathologist.
It's something new.
It made me think about what our media has been doing to Sherlock Holmes for the last 50 years, where he does anything in any timeline.
You're not wrong. Why did you have to point that out? But you're kind of right. Yeah. I hate you.
I know. And that's why we do this show.
I'm just glad we're finally getting some progress on this. I want Dee's podcast.
Speaking of hating me, shall we talk about Blade Trinity? Really? Please hold.
So, Blade Trinity is a 2004 action horror film directed by David S. Goyer, who also wrote the screenplays to Blade and Blade 2. So, do you wanna jump into this first?
Can you shout out a simple synopsis for me?
Sure, I can shout it out just like the directing for this movie was shout out. So Blade is doing Blade things, and then a subcult of vampires find Dracula. Just they find him, they unbury him, he's alive now, and then through various plot shenanigans, Whistler dies, but also we meet Whistler's daughter, also Whistler, and her band of merry nerds, and also pre-Deadpool, and they...
But not the Deadpool you know. It's the pre-Deadpool from X-Men Wolverine's origin.
Anyways, back to Blade Trinity. So then Whistler and Deadpool Light take over the plot with their nerd friends, cameoing Blade. They team up with the cameo of Blade, Wesley Snipes as Blade, without the sunglasses. And then they fight Drake. And did I mention that Dracula goes by a different name now called Drake? And also he's hot. And and also has no stage presence. And then he kills him,
Who kills
and
who?
Blade kills Drake, and then the movie's over. And now we have a new team set up for new adventures.
You missed the 10-minute gearing up scene
True.
before Blade kills Drake.
Yeah.
That was an important part of the plot
true.
for 10 whole minutes.
I think not on a structural level, purely on a viewing level, this movie is hijacked by the new cast members instead of it being a Blade movie. And they're not that great, so it really doesn't help. It's not like a passing the baton or whatever. It's just some shenanigans happen behind the scenes in the script and whatever. So we're just mostly featuring these new characters, and Wesley Snipes shows up sometimes. So on a viewing level, that makes it kind of boring. But please, weigh into this thing.
I have... I'll get into it later. The opening scene just set the mood for me. I was just memeing through the whole viewing. This was my first time viewing it. So, like, the first shot is set in a desert setting, maybe. There's sand everywhere, and there's army dudes with guns walking upstairs into, like, a really round, weird, space-looking doorway.
But
and
the
I'm like,
vampire flipped off the sun, so you know he's a vampire.
and I'm like, Stargate? Did we start the wrong movie? And then one of them takes their helmet off, and he's got Vulcan ears, and he looks like a young Spock. And I'm like, what are we watching?
Yeah. And then...
Then it cuts to an interview with some late night talk show host or whatever interviewing a doctor about some hippie health book that he's got. And they're talking about hippie health topics and then vampires. And it was like, whoa, what? What?
Yeah. So to overlay on top of that, all of that is an opening credit sequence as well,
Yes.
which was some of the most disgusting editing I have seen in terms of opening credits. It's like when... I can't even describe it. It's the opening credits being like really jarring and covered in CG and shitty editing is the meme. That's been a thing. The mid-2000s were not nice to superhero movies. The opening credits are just disgusting. These boring generic fonts, it's all whip, pan, whoosh, wah, whoosh. Well, and fine enough action sequences going on, which is cranked up to like 175%. Just, this is a very dumbed down movie. Aside from some questionable ideas, which I'm sure we'll get into, the first couple of scenes really give it off. It's very, very dumbed down, and then the camp is cranked up, but it then is cringe, and then the action is also cranked up, but that doesn't mean it's more intense or it's faster. It's just shittier. There's just way more of it, and it's more, the kicks are so big, and then they fly so far. It's so cringe. It's very over-the-top cringe. Also, he doesn't wear sunglasses for, like, the first third of the movie.
I hadn't noticed that, and I am very upset with
He's
myself.
inside.
However...
And he's not wearing sunglasses for a while.
To counter that point, he says bad words now.
He said bad words before.
He did not drop the MF.
Some
Before.
motherfucker's always trying to ice skate uphill. First movie, right there, boom.
What?
You're an idiot. It's like the best quote of the movie.
Alright, he drops way more language in this one.
I can definitely agree with that. But it also feels more like a PG-13 movie.
Yes.
It feels like this was made by teenagers.
But I think that was more fitting for the Blade character because he had a filthier mouth. It was kind of weird.
I don't know. I didn't notice him swearing that much more. I don't care, really. He doesn't strike me as the type that doesn't curse. That's for sure.
No, but
But-
I think the increase was enough to fit the character better.
I suppose. Perhaps. I don't know. I have no strong feelings on that. All I know is once the first action scene was over, I went, this movie is dumb. It's just big and loud and not very intelligently directed or written. Big oof, sorry, David.
Continuing from my point about the interview in the beginning, this whole movie is very choppy. It was quite often that someone would be saying something, and then boom, they're talking about something else in like the same sentence, and it's like, what? Where did that come from?
Yeah.
Or something would happen, and it would just be like, blindside you. Like, where did this come from?
The original screenplay was like banged out really quickly, and then because they couldn't find a director, then David S. Goyer had his directorial debut and then had to pull double duty. And apparently, I think some of this was disputed pretty recently, but there was a lot of very strong aggression going back and forth between him and Wesley Snipes. I think some of it has been, it was like really, it sounded really bad like a couple of years ago, and then apparently recently there's been some like sanding off of the edges, but I haven't looked into it that much. Apparently, like they wouldn't communicate effectively, and they'd pass back like sticky notes effectively. So I can understand why it turned out very choppy.
I saw some unverified blurbs about a lot of people not getting along, and actors and writers and whatever not talking, basically. So
I mean, if I was
there's
Ryan
something
Reynolds
there.
and I had to walk around that shredded for this movie, being the first time he has been on gear for a movie easily, I would also be angry and not work well with people. Wesley Snipes is hamming it up and also not caring, seemingly. You can chalk that up to bad directing or a bad performance because of bad directing or whatever. But it's really corny and hammed up. He's smiling all the time because he's cracking one-liners. But also he isn't that important. Like, he's important to the plot because they need his blood or whatever. Because you always need Blade's blood. Or you need Drake's blood. But, like, he's barely in this thing. He's in the background of most scenes.
Yep.
And apparently they used a lot of that was a stunt double. Like a body double when you weren't using a close-up. Like a close shot where you can tell you need Wesley Snipes. Or apparently, unverified information.
I hadn't noticed that.
I could see that. Because he's just kind of there.
Yep.
His back is turned a lot.
Yep.
Just, yee. That kind of deals... It's just... David S. Goyer is one of those guys that's been around the superhero circuit a lot. Like, a lot. Very up and down in terms of quality. But this was a very rough directing debut. Regardless of the script writing, the directing is... Every once in a while, he'll try something interesting, and it just doesn't work. And then the rest of it is just basic coverage. And one of his later directed films, X-Men Dark Phoenix...
Ugh.
It has the same directing. It's just very simple shot, second shot, like shot, reaction shot. Dialogue is just basic over the shoulder, shot, reaction shot, basic coverage, mid-frame, like the same stuff. It's just very boring to watch. It has like none of the visual flair of the first two movies, which both had different types of flair. Blade 2, far more strongly. Lord Guillermo del Toro can direct my movie any day. But just, it's so boring, and I think a lot of it has to do with how much CG they use, primarily in the weapons department. I have a big bone to pick with this movie, and having 50 new weapons, and half of them are fake. Like, you got this weird laser vibe. It looks like a Klingon Bat'leth. You know,
Oh, yeah.
it looks like that, but it's got a laser on the front that fries vampires for reasons, and it's all CG. The whole thing, even if they were like holding something, it's entirely coated in CG, and it looks atrocious. And also, it just breaks the tone of the other movies. Now it's sci-fi, and he's got a knife with a chain on it, which was fine, I guess. That was okay.
Yep.
It just...
Except that it was stolen right out of Mortal Kombat or God of War. But
I mean, yeah, but I can live with that. But it's just new weapons, and they got laser guns, and they got guns with darts in them, and they have guns that shoot arrowheads, and the bows shoot like, what the fuck? Everything is just about throwing more technology in this, which takes away from the archaic vampire-ness of it, which is always cool. And then, you know, got Ryan Reynolds has 8 new guns, and then freaking Jessica Biel's got like 80 new guns, and then they got their tech boy who's made more guns. It's like, geez, This is just it's just too much, and they all look really plasticky and or CG, and I can't stand it.
I really hadn't noticed how bad the CG was on the weapons. I mean, there were obvious CG uses, like the laser bow thing,
Yeah.
but it didn't really stick out or bother me that much. But yes, there was an abundance of new characters, new weapons, new everything. It was more than a fresh coat of paint. It was just throw all of the new ideas at this.
Yeah, it maybe in concept originally it was an idea of clashing times or new people and young people and their new technology, whatever. Like, you could see something in there was an idea, but it just falls apart. There's no cohesiveness. None of it has any meaning. Instead of it being like, oh, Blade's archaic and only uses swords and like one gun, even though he's always used guns. Like, you could make some way to make it work. Like, he
Right.
only uses swords because he's pretentious or whatever. And then they're like, guys, guns work too. And he's like, no.
While you were doing drugs, I studied the blade.
And then by the end of the movie, he's like, maybe I'll use a gun or whatever. Like, that wouldn't have worked because he's used guns in the other movies. But you know what I mean? Like, you could make something out of that.
Old school and new school.
Even like Wonder Woman between movies, changing from using a sword and shield to using like a lasso because she deals with mostly civilians instead of being at war. Like, little shit like that. It doesn't make a movie, but it helps.
Right.
It means it's intentional.
There's attention to detail.
This is just sloppy. The whole thing is really sloppy.
I
I did like Patton Oswalt though. The nerd. They're like, virgin. He's like, no. That's it. It's just virgin and gay jokes, but it was
Oh my gosh.
I thought it was kind of funny. They really cranked up the level of juvenile humor.
Oh yeah.
Clearly here we're not opposed to juvenile humor.
Cock and balls.
Dick butt. Like I said, it feels like this was made by teenagers. Not in terms of like skill level, but in terms of like what they care about. It's big, it's flashy, it's really, really low quality, and everything's a dick joke. Like, Ryan Reynolds making dick jokes is gold.
Kind of
It's-
expected.
It's always been gold. This kind of started that,
Right.
but that's it, and kind of all the characters do it.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just... Can we talk about Drake? Can we talk about Drake?
I was going to move on because I was memeing through the whole movie. At the very end, when they shoot the arrow that stops vampirism or whatever, cures it, at Dracula, Drake, whatever, I was like, well, boys, we did it. We stopped vampirism. Because that's what it felt like. That was the end. Arrow, poof. No more vampires. End of movie.
Yeah.
There was no resolution after they fixed him. It was just, all right, he's fixed now.
Yeah, it was... I kind of just thinking of this now. Maybe originally, like way back on original concept of this movie, it was like Blade feels kind of old and like archaic and like outdated compared to these new hip young people who are only like 10 years younger than him, but whatever. You know how Hollywood does that. But then Dracula is like so old, and then like there's like conflict because he's like, I see value in both of these ideas, and because, you know, Dracula at the end is like, you fought with honor, I respect you, let me pretend to be you as I die, or whatever that thing was. Like, I can't tell what you were going for, but I can see that there were ideas. And if I had yarn, maybe I could try to connect them, but I don't care enough to try. There was something in here. Also, Whistler dies, which is kind of lame. He just gets blown up. He's like, no, leave the warehouse.
Which definitely felt like he was going to come back later, and he didn't.
I'm glad he didn't, because they already did that. So,
Fair.
yeah. It's just strange. It's a weird movie. It's not atrocious. It's good for memeing. Like, this is not the worst thing I've ever seen. I actually had... it's improved since my last viewing. Not by much, but it's so aggressively mediocre.
That sets me up for my final point. Each entry of this trilogy is a different kind of camp.
Yes.
And I think that they're all mediocre just for different reasons.
I don't like you. Can
Okay.
you leave my house?
This one, you can see it for what it should have been. Like, yeah, the action is cranked up, and it's usually better
What?
than the first one was. The action in the first one kind of sucked. But, like you've been saying, it goes too far. So it should have been reined back a little bit. But the fights are clearly bigger. And there was more effort put into them, even if there was CG and more wires and whatever. Like, it should have been reined back. It should have been cut and snipped and fixed a little bit better. But there was more effort put into the fights than the first one, I think. But
I suppose.
like the levels of each topic go up and down per movie, and I think it all evens out to be the same. I enjoyed the second one the most because it was the most moderate, the most tolerable. I don't know.
Even keeled.
You can complain about each of these movies about something.
I still can't believe you guys don't like Blade 2 that much. Like, come on, you guys have shit taste. Blade 2 is amazing.
Like I said, that one was my favorite. But I finished this one and was like, it wasn't that bad. This trilogy is just camp. You have to go into it expecting camp and not the greatest of movies. And then with that expectation, you're not going to be disappointed.
I suppose. I don't know. It feels like there's a varying, like a very different level of care put into the camp. Like,
Yes.
the character in and of itself is campy, like on base premise from the comics. Like, that's just how it is. And then the first movie was very clearly of the time and stuff. And then the second one was definitely campy, but it was very intentional. Everything did feel cared about. And then this one's just, ha! Her vagina's got teeth. Like, what the fuck? It's camp, I guess, but it's garbage camp. It just, I don't know. It's aggressively mediocre. I think I've used that a few times recently. It's a good term. It's like, it's not garbage, but it's trying so hard, and it's not winning any of its battles.
Right.
Except Ryan Reynolds having abs. Them steroids really did wonders. Vampire dogs. Did you see that coming? Just vampire dogs. Why? Because vampire dogs. I have to talk about Drake. I'm sorry, I have to roll back to that. So, vampire dogs, for one, but they're not just vampire dogs. They're the genetic mutants from the second movie that have, like, the opening up jaw with the second tongue thing. Why? That seems so sloppy. And then Dracula is like a tank. It's not, because he's like the original vampire. He has no genetic defects or whatever, so he can like walk in daylight and whatever. And making him look like a young, strong boy makes sense, I guess, but then the voice modulation was garbage. Very, very bad.
Yep.
And then he apparently doesn't have like normal bone structure. Like, he has a bajillion little bones, and that's why he can he can shapeshift. But his normal, quote-unquote, form is, like, this weird monster-looking thing. But it's, like, big and bulky and very clearly a suit. And it's so... I don't understand where that was going. Cool, you want to give it a scientific reason why he can shapeshift and whatever, that's fine. Making him the progenitor of the species is totally cool. Why does he just turn into, like, this giant... He looks like a beetle. Like, he's got armor plating.
I kind of don't mind it.
Oh, it's so ugly.
That's the point.
But
He's the king of the vampires.
How does that look like a vampire?
I don't know.
Even if it clearly had effort put into it, whatever. I guess the design could work for it. He looks like a demon. He doesn't look like a vampire. Like a
Vampires have always had a demonic overtone.
yes,
Undertone. Whatever. Tone.
You're not wrong, but when I think of vampires and demonicism, I think more like sneaky, whispery stuff. Whatever, I don't know. I'm not thinking like Hellboy demons, when I think vampires. When I think vampires and demons, I'm thinking like they're demons as in they're so bad and evil and whatever. Like we can classify them as demons because they have like some occult powers and whatever, but not like they're literal devils. Like that's I've never gotten that ever off of anything except this movie, and I think it's kind of crap. Because now he looks like a Hellboy villain instead of a blood-sucking sword boy. Now he can just punch him.
I guess I can see that sort of. He's not a Hellboy villain. He's more of like a spook wisp in the night.
Not just I have I've always ranted about generic stuff like tall capes and like pointy teeth and the slick like the generic like universal monster stuff. I don't like that. Go back to the original source material, and most of it, at least that I've encountered, is sneaky little weird sex demons.
So
Not I'm gonna punch him and slash him with a sword. It makes me angry.
we're going to change the formula a little bit because Colin isn't here.
Change the form.
Spencer and I have a common topic that we would like to talk about in our common topic section instead of individual reviews. So speaking of not amazing movies, let's talk about Black Widow of 2021.
Back to formula. I can't mock Green Goblin. Yeah, Black Widow. Directed by Kate Shortland. Screenplay by Eric Pearson. Story by Jack Schaefer and Ned Benson. So, do you want to give a summary of this? Because I have like a written review, unlike what I normally have. Do you want to just...
Let me find something online because I'm not going to be able to do a simple summary.
The summary you're going to get is Natasha Romanoff grapples with her troubled past, basically.
Yep. Natasha Romanoff, aka Black Widow, confronts the darker parts of her ledger when a dangerous conspiracy with ties to her past arises.
That's generic as hell.
Pursued by a force that will stop at nothing to bring her down, Natasha must deal with her history as a spy and the broken relationships left in her wake long before she became an Avenger. And then we're gonna end the movie on a helicarrier just like any other Marvel movie. I added that last part.
Ah, okay. That makes more sense. Yeah. Please start.
I was killing Spencer when we were in the movie theater watching this because of one of the top themes that this movie was going for, and that is family. For people listening in the future, years from now, when we've made it famous and people want to hear where we came from, our roots, it's a very, very popular meme format because of Fast and Furious 51, I think, just came out.
No, 52. It's when they cross over with the DC Universe.
Oh, yeah. Anyway, it spawned a massively cancerous meme format.
It does this every time a new movie comes out, and this has been the worst one. It's so bad.
It was enough to get Spencer off of Reddit.
I genuinely uninstalled Reddit and didn't go on social media for a couple of days for this to pass. It was horrible.
And that is every single meme at some point had to mention family.
Yeah,
because,
Dom Toretto shows up and you see Vin Diesel's ugly fucking mug and it's just family!
Yes. I have no idea why it's funny. I've never seen a Fast and Furious movie.
Don't.
So, I was killing Spencer by saying family through the movie.
I was gonna reach over there and start beating you. Just like family.
But it was too funny not to do to him. But yes, family. There's a lot of family in this movie.
Can you give an actual summary? Fine, I'll do it.
It starts out with spy stuff, it turns into family stuff, and then ends as final fight on a helicarrier stuff.
Yeah, that's fine enough.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm just gonna read my review.
Do it.
I'm gonna try really hard not to ramble on this one. So the largest issue with this movie is that it's 5 years too late. The overall story is decent, but the plot goes off the rails at the midway point. Good dialogue and excellent performances from a stellar cast cannot salvage Black Widow from the dreaded, quote, Marvel Studios' second unit takes over and it's all CG and explosions, end quote issue. The Bourne influence is clear and executed competently in the first half, but should have been leaned into way more directly. The hand-to-hand combat is well choreographed, but not over-edited for the most part. And the fully CG/mocap fights are extremely undercooked. This should have been made and released in like 2016 or 17 and or made into a Disney Plus series. I genuinely believe you could have told almost everything in this story over a series and it would have been better. And able to like actually give the character the respect she deserves, which clearly isn't what Marvel Studios is aiming for. Florence Pugh's supremacy, yada yada yada. Don't let me start talking about how horrible Taskmaster is. Every review of this movie on the internet is correct, genuinely. It's sadly another forgettable MCU flick which had the potential to be incredible.
I felt it was overall fine, I guess, but it just didn't commit to one thing. It spreads itself too thin over a couple genres and plots. Like I said, you've got the spy stuff that would have been really, really cool in the beginning. And then there's a huge section of family that is trying to develop characters, which is fine.
Those two plots, that should have been the movie.
Yeah, those two could have fit together well.
But floating red room.
Is where it falls apart.
Yeah.
And I think you said on the way home, like, the years that this has been on the shelf, they couldn't have put 5 people in a room to continue baking the CG at the end.
Even just the CG,
Just
maybe clean up
something.
the editing a little bit,
Yeah.
like anything. It just...
There were some atrocious explosions behind character running away from them in the end.
I mean, frankly, those couldn't have been avoided because they were already ignoring massive amounts of their internal, like, logic of the movie anyway. So it's always going to look bad because she would have been fried. Like, regardless. It's just... The things that are genuinely good in this movie, I do think almost all the performances were really good.
Yes, absolutely.
The villain, whose name I don't remember, I actually thought he did really well in the couple of scenes that he was in. I enjoyed the idea of, like, essentially setting up this whole... The villain's just essentially an abuser. Like, I really liked that, like, setup premise of him, like, pumping out these generations on generations of just, like, murder machine women. I liked that stuff. And he really came across as just, like, that really scummy piece of crap you want to kick the crap out of, but, like, you can't because, like, stuff will happen. Like, it gave me that, like, very tangibly. And then the whole scene got undercut because she knew what was going to happen the whole time, and she was performing. That killed me.
There's two sides to that. So, he's in the middle of a huge exposition dump. So, while you're watching it, you're like, this scene is going on too long. But it also feels like there should have been more of him, because it's like, here's the final villain. Boom.
Yeah.
Bad guy. Boom. Dead. Like, he should have been sprinkled through the whole movie so that you really hate him by the time you get to see him.
Yep.
And you already know what's going on.
Yeah, for sure. Also, I have to rail on that moment. I actually did find the whole break the nose on the desk bit funny. And I think it was supposed to be funny. Like, it wasn't like a lull, like a good old rolling on the floor, but like, okay, that was a decent moment.
That
but
was
but
good.
in retro, as soon as you move to the next scene, it's like, wait a minute, that undercut that whole scene, dramatically speaking.
Oh, yeah.
That's really
I
obnoxious.
don't think it was breaking her nose. I thought it was, like, crunching the chip in her forehead. But
It's
whatever.
like here, yeah.
I
like
took
it's-
it as a big oof, like, oh,
Oh, that looks.
that had to have hurt.
The sound design on that was excellent.
Yes. I did not actually chuckle or whatever at it. I was like,
I like
gross.
cringe laughed, and I was
Yes.
like, oh,
Wait a
she was,
minute.
oh, that was really disappointing.
Yep.
But I don't know. Florence Pugh was awesome. I have to say it, just like every other fanboy on the internet. She's clearly the reason this movie was really made, is so they can pull her into present day and use her in the future.
Spoilers.
Black Widow dies.
We knew that. I really like where that's going.
I also
Younger
do.
sister Black Widow has an army of Black Widows to go save Black Widows, and then there's going to be a bigger army of Black Widows. Where is that going? I'm excited.
I feel like I think you're half right. I'm very confident that those widows are all dispersed by now. I think they're all going their own separate ways. I feel like that's gonna.
go your own way.
Yeah, I feel like that's like they got their crap together over a couple of years and they were kind of all sent out to just live their own lives. But her going on a revenge mission for what is essentially miscommunication because Hawkeye didn't kill Black Widow is actually pretty neat. I think that's cool.
Also, we have a Hawkeye TV show coming up here quick. Which is what she's gonna be appearing in as well. Confirmed.
But like,
Whoa.
yeah. That last scene was actually pretty good. Like I liked the whistling motif. It was so sad it was literally only used 3 times. Like that we're only gonna introduce it in this one movie, so you have to make that punchy. You have to use that well to be like, ooh, we gotta make something that'll make you feel things. They used it once in the beginning, once right before the final battle, and then at the end. And that was it. So it's like, oh, she did that at the beginning of the movie. It's trying to be earnest, and it didn't earn that.
Those things usually always come across as lame.
It's a really tricky thing to nail.
I can't think of a good one.
I can't off the top of my head, but I'm not thinking about it right now. But I have to say the post credit scene, not like the little stinger of her getting getting a Quinjet to go help Captain America. That was fine as an ending. It was like, oh, this movie literally takes place between the end of Civil War and the end scene of Civil War. That's kind of neat.
Also, I'm kind of annoyed.
That we never got to see that breakout, because that would have been freaking cool.
No,
Oh.
that the Phil Coulson replacement basically
You mean
is kind of introduced in this movie, but we've already seen her in Falcon and Winter
'cause
Soldier
this was
because
supposed to come
COVID effed everything up.
Yeah, because this was supposed to come up first, where she was named, and
Right.
then she just appears in. It makes more sense if they're flipped,
Right.
admittedly.
It makes me feel a lot better because watching Falcon and Winter Soldier, I'm like, what?
Yeah, for sure. I just that scene was really good, but I did not like how. I'm very much so of two minds. I understand you want her to come across like kind of a bitch, so you're like she ruins the emotional moment by blowing her nose like a. But also, you ruined the emotional moment by blowing your nose. Marvel, stop undercutting your emotional scenes with jokes. Please. Stop. Anger. That's really
They're
all I
doing
got.
the same thing with her that they did with Coulson. He came across quite unfeeling
A little bit.
and then turned into a teddy bear.
I suppose, but also she's assembling a bad guy team of bad guys. So they do bad guy things. I don't know.
So this is a Suicide Squad. Kidding, only kidding. Kind of.
I mean, it's either going to be Dark Avengers or Thunderbolts. It's probably going to be Thunderbolts. Can we get Red Hulk, please? Moving on. So,
yes.
our other topic in common, we have Bad Batch episode 14. Did you watch it?
Aha, that was a good transition from Dark Avengers Thunderbolts to Bad
I
Batch.
didn't realize that. I'm smart.
Accidentally.
Yeah. So this episode has the boys and the Gorl and their droid go after Gregor. So the Rex sends them off on a mission while they're in the middle of a mission. I'm assuming for money.
Yes.
So then they go rescue a clone trooper. We get to see proto stormtroopers and commandos.
Please tell me what that is in reference to. Is that Rebels or is that freaking New Hope?
The stormtroopers or the commandos?
Stormtroopers, I think, is from New Hope, right?
Yeah, they're just stormtroopers.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's
They literally say they have new armor or updated armor or
yes.
something like that.
Yeah, so there's a couple of things. One, they're modeled after the original concept art from Ralph McQuarrie, which was really freaking cool.
Right.
And then they use kind of a similar helmet design for like the cadet, like the stormtrooper cadets and rebels, which I just realized after watching it. Like just like the almost like mini helmet on top of the helmet type deal.
Right.
Those were really cool. And the commando was just, ooh, I remember those. He's got blue lights. You didn't know. Republic Commando.
The game?
Yeah,
I haven't played it.
so good.
Okay.
Also, just they just look cool. That was ODST before ODST was the thing.
Where does that fall in the timeline?
It just exists now. It's canonical. They exist. That's it. It's simple. It doesn't mean it just goes. The Republic Commandos are, I guess, Imperial Commandos. That's just. It's a new subdivision. It's
Okay.
cool. So now the Empire is transitioning from clone troopers to stormtroopers. They're booting out the Kaminoans. Gregor is weird because Gregor was always weird. My bigger point of this episode that I really like is how we're following up on so many of the named clone like captains and commanders that we saw in the Clone Wars. Like we're getting wrap up on all of them, and it feels really cool.
I didn't know Gregor, but I don't think I've seen him in Clone Wars yet. So
Yeah, he's way at the end, and only for like an episode or two. But the tone was a little bit darker.
yes,
A little bit,
and I
Just a
like
tiny
it.
little bit. The music was really really good.
This episode's plot made me think that they could turn the Bad Batch into a really good video game. So here's my
It does feel almost fetch questy, but not like Rise of Skywalker fetch questy.
pitch. The characters of Bad Batch. You have Uncle Rambo, Hunter, Uncle Echo, Uncle Tech, Uncle Wrecker, and Omega, right?
Child, yes.
Yes. So that's 5 people. If you remove one character, it changes the mission style.
True.
So in this episode, they have
I mean, we had that at the beginning a little bit, didn't
Wrecker
we?
and Omega go back to the ship, and you had Hunter, Echo, and Tech going to explore, and it's immediately a recon mission.
It's a turn-based combat
No.
game.
But like, if you have Tech stay home and send Wrecker, you have Hunter, Echo, and Wrecker, and you kind of well balanced out.
Yeah.
You've got some sneak, some tech, and some muscle.
Stab.
So, like, have any
Yes.
3, and you've got a different application.
They are dynamic and modular. I'm pulling out all my corporate words.
Gross.
Yeah. I have to say, Gonk finally getting some play in this episode felt really nice.
Some usage.
They finally, the thing that they set up early, like, it's just, oh, they have a Gonk droid. You know, it's like, oh, they have a Gonk droid. Will that ever go anywhere? They just have a Gonk droid.
He's a DLC character.
Every episode, they just, oh, look, it's Gonk. It's a Gonk. And this episode, he does something.
He's a DLC character to my video game.
No, he lives in the hub world, which is your ship.
Oh.
I don't know. It was nice. It's like, oh, look, the stupid Gonk droid did something useful.
It was quite tense. The fight chase scene pickup. I don't know how you want to describe it.
The part in
Trying to rescue the whole crew at the end. I was like, are they gonna leave this
are we gonna kill someone?
open-ended, or are they gonna pull it together in the last few seconds of the episode? And it turns out it's continued. But it really could have gone either way, like the whole time, and it was really tense, and I like it.
Yes.
It's not like R-rated movie tense. It's still PG.
Yeah, it's still
But
for small
interesting.
babies. Yeah, no, it very good. One of the better episodes for sure.
Yes.
I am looking forward to the last 2. This finale is going to be very fun.
Mm-hmm.
Who's going to die?
Crosshair. Easy.
But what if he doesn't?
The game is set before this show, so you have Crosshair as part of the band too.
The end of the game starts with Order 66.
Yeah.
Wow. We can make this game that last mission they were talking about when the thing starts, because they just finished a mission when the long episode starts at the beginning.
Bring back 1313, and it's secretly a Bad Batch
Oh
game.
my gosh. Star Wars nerds and their 1313.
I really don't care about 1313. I
Yeah.
just like using it as a meme.
Yes, we've talked about that a few times.
Yep.
What have you been up to?
I'm gonna double down on Black Widow because I read the 20-issue run of Black Widow from 2014, written by Nathan Edmondson and art by Phil Noto. You would know the cover if you look it up.
Probably.
I feel bad about getting into the bad stuff immediately, but the art is really, really soft. It feels underbaked. It's like hard pencils, and that's it. It's rough. I really
Not a fan.
no.
Wow.
And I feel bad for saying it because it makes it look unique. You look at it and you're like, oh, that's Widow from 2014. Like, there's nothing that looks like it, really, kind of. But it should look a little bit better, more defined, something. I don't know. Art Boy isn't here to help correct me. So
If Colin was here, he would take about 8 minutes to tell us about how he is an artist, and that because he's an artist, he knows art things, and then he'd spend 30 seconds maybe telling us what you're actually talking about, and then he'd go, "You're wrong, but I can't do that either," and then we'd go back to normal.
yes, it's not really inked or shaded either. There's just not a lot of detail or effort, it felt like, put into the artwork. So it's boring to look at. The story is just passable spy stuff. So kind of like what we wanted the movie to be. She goes on missions and does the mission, and that's the end of the issue.
So
it's very small stuff.
Is she wearing the black leather onesie with the yellow belt with the emblem on it? Is it that outfit?
I don't remember. There's a lot of black leather, but like I said, it's not very well defined. So
Wow.
yeah, passable spy stuff, like the movie should have been. Oof. But nothing that really sticks out in my mind as, oh, and then she went and did this. It's just generic.
That's disappointing. Wow.
Yeah,
How amazing.
I had much higher hopes for this.
I believe it was I don't remember how long the run was, but Ed Brubaker did a run on Black Widow as well, and she crossed over with the Winter Soldier, and that stuff was phenomenal. Ed Brubaker writing Captain America and like Black Widow related characters is bonkers good.
That sounds really, really good.
Very good. So I read the 10th issue of All-Star Batman and Robin the Boy Wonder. So we talked about the first 9 issues last week, which are collected in the normal trade book. And then there's the Absolute Edition. I don't know why they'd ever release that, which includes all 10. The first 9 are one arc, and then this 10th issue sets up another arc, so I get why the trade was set up like that. But the run stopped after this because it was being published so sporadically and received horribly. Okay. So you know how I said the last issue 9, was like kind of actually pretty okay?
Yes.
This one isn't. Which is really disappointing. So we kick off a new arc. We go back to hanging out with our boy, James Gordon, which was really nice to see. He looks really freaking cool in Jim Lee's art. So this is the first, in this universe, in Earth 31, this is the first time we've seen James Gordon since the end of Batman Year 1. So we're following up from that. So Barbara has grown up a bit. So she's like 15, I believe, in this book. So she just decides to start Batgirling, like on her own. She like takes inspiration from Batman. I've always kind of liked that. She like gets pulled into the fold.
Yep.
It helps make her more of a, like, yeah, Batman's a father figure, but he is not her father. She has a father. Like, I like how Babs is the most independent of the Bat family. She's also the most well-developed individual. She's also the least traumatized. Even though she's the most traumatized, she's the most recovered from it, which is really cool. But she's just got a 15 and just vibing. She's just punching people and stuff in a Batgirl costume. And that coalesces with Jim, who's having marital problems. I know, right? Barbara, his wife, gets drunk and gets like wrapped around a tree, so she goes to the hospital. That's about it. Like, this has no plot in it. short. We do see Batman and Robin very briefly. They're fine, I guess. They're to the point of their dynamic actually feels right. Like after the last issue, this is just he's a little boy soldier, but he's got daddy problems. But like it's not he's in his place. Like he's not being like a little snot anymore. You know, like he's just yes sir, yes sir, yes sir. Batman's angry as hell. James Gordon also references him as the goddamn Batman, so that meme continues. Not sure how I feel about that, but it feels like there's nothing really else to this. There was one thing that I did really like, though, and that is that Barbara Gordon parallels Carrie Kelly in The Dark Knight Returns, partially in terms of aesthetic choice, but also in terms of panel layout and like framing. She does a lot of the same poses with a very similar attitude, and she uses not the same slang, but like same Frank Miller trying to write a young kid, but it kind of works okay, unlike all the other books where his girl dialogue is atrocious. And none of the women in this book feel like a piece of meat, which for Frank Miller is impressive. It's really it. That's all I got. The Batgirl outfit looks okay. It's starting to set up a new plot. So Babs being like 2-3 years older than Dick Grayson, and they're both active at the same. That makes more sense as like setup wise. It doesn't go anywhere. The series is dead, so it's weird. I gave it a 2 out of 5. It's fine.
Just like the rest of the series.
It was just that last issue that was a bit of a step up. Yeah. So that's all I got.
So I watched the entire second season of Westworld.
Ooh. Booby robots.
I'll start with the good stuff. I appreciate that they pick up right where the end of season 1 left off. And they try to wrap it up logically. They're trying to follow through with the events of the last season. They could have easily settled for just another season 1, basically. But it went in a really weird direction, and it took way too long to get there. It took the whole season to wrap up the last episode of season 1. Yeah. It is nowhere near as good as season 1. Season 1 has clear points and stories and less stories and morals that it wants to talk about. You're the one that has to suffer through editing because I'm not saying it again.
Oh, fuck you. For Spencer and editing, I'm opening up sparkling water. Make a meme.
Season 2 finally amped up in quality in the last 2, maybe 3 episodes. It was like finally picking up the pace and finishing the fight. And it feels like it's finally going to move on in season 3.
So season 3 is season 2. Got it.
Basically. I mean,
Yeah.
I really liked that they finally introduced and actually crossed over the other worlds in the park. So you have Samurai World, and you got freaking finally Indians in Westworld, and I think there was another one in reality. So there were like 4 armies, basically. 5 armies. I don't know.
Did the eagles show up?
No, there were no eagles.
Fine. Were there wargs?
No,
That's
not
very,
that I could think of.
That's very dis.
But there were samurai.
This is acceptable.
Your turn. Last one. Go.
So I read the first volume of Hellblazer, Original Sin, which collects the first 9 issues, as well as some Swamp Thing tie-ins, which was the introduction of the character to the world at large in 88. So I freaking love John Constantine, the character. I like the movie. I like the show. I like the animated movie. I like him in everything that I've ever seen him in. He's got a bit of a rough start here, to be honest. The character in and of itself is pretty clear from the start, but the rest of it is pretty rough. Just feels not underbaked, but more like, I don't know. Underbaked isn't the right word, but it feels like it wasn't quite ready yet. It needed a little bit more thought put into it first. I don't know.
It's not quite what the character came to be that everyone knows and loves.
It evolved better now, so
Yes.
maybe it was intended differently. I don't know. But it was written by Jamie Delano, and then illustrated, also written by Rich Veitch, and then illustrated by John Ridgway. So this was very clearly printed on yellow, cheap newspaper paper in the 80s, and the art style fits. It just, if you've read a book from that time published that way, you know what I'm talking about. It's not bad. Sometimes it can be really cool, but just because of that, it relies on the medium of which it was built for, and when it's updated and digitized and then recolored, or very sloppily recolored, in my opinion, of this reprint, it's fine. Sometimes it's disgustingly horrifying in the right ways, and then other times it's just kind of ugly to look at. The dialogue is very slang heavy of, 80s UK, which I don't mind. Sometimes I have to look up a term. Sometimes I don't. Which I don't mind that. It makes reading a little slower sometimes.
Smoke means something very different today.
And this book also uses it in the derogatory sense as well. And then, 2 panels later, it's also talking about a cigarette. It's like, oh my goodness, they did not care. Holy cow. But on the whole, I really appreciate just the character in of itself. You can see the ideas of what we would know now in terms of, it's a very explicitly political book. The weird cult setup, the holy war essentially, but it's not like a holy war, it's a holy war, you know what I mean? From John Constantine's perspective, heaven and hell are both fucked, which has evolved very differently over each iteration on how they're portrayed and whatever. So, in the beginning, at least for this, we have the demons are just kind of sloppy, fat, ugly, weird demon things. And then in, the people at the moment that we've seen that are quote unquote fighting on the side of heaven are essentially the Westboro Baptist Church. You can understand why John's like, holy cow, these are all horrible. I'm just going to do my own shenanigans. So that stuff was nice. I appreciate that. But the individual stories don't... It's one of those, kind of like Hellboy, where the anecdotal kind of random stories have one element that'll tie into the plot later. So it has setup and payoff by the end of the book. It just... I don't know. The issues are also pretty big, which is nice. So each story is one issue.
Mm-hmm.
But something is just kind of rough. It really might just be the art. If it was done differently or if it was cleaned up a little bit better in the republishing, maybe I'd like it more. Because it's just kind of distracting. The colors are gaudy and garish, which was very of the times because of limited colors. Something, admittedly, I think Marvel handled a lot better in early publishing up until the 90s versus DC and then the indie publishers was using their limited colors spectrum way better. I'm going to keep reading it. I'm going to read all 26 of these books as well as the New 52 books, then the Rebirth books, then the other Rebirth books. Then I'll finally be caught up to the current ongoing Black Label books. But I hope it gets a little bit better.
Rough start.
Definitely a rough start. Not horrible. I worked through it in a couple of days, but...
How are you reading it?
Physical book.
Really?
Yeah, it's right over there.
Okay, cool.
Yep. I do have to say, they really do just dive head first into the edgy topics, though. Holy crap. The third issue is we got statutory rape and child marriage. FBI! It just goes for it, which I admire the balls of. Just sometimes it makes your stomach drop a little bit, and I think that's very intentional, and I appreciate that.
I don't know what horrific demonic comics you read, but I encounter that all the time.
What shit are you reading?
I'm just kidding.
It's Harry Potter or something? You reading that sorcery junk? Young man, we do not allow that in this household.
Only while I listen to heavy metal. Roll credits. Thank you to our patrons.
Jacob knows how to pronounce a word. Congratulations.
I knew you would jizz all over the mic for that.
Don't joke.
Caught some. Business Casual, Jeff Lawrence, and Wesley Eaton, thank you all for your support. We appreciate every penny of it. Anybody listening that wants to throw pennies at us for the lulz can go over to patreon.com/Dime Comic Bros. Give us money. We love it. Thank you.
We do love money.
And we love you, the listeners. But
Do
we
we?
don't love each other. That is apparent. That's why we spend one day of every single weekend together in a room yelling at each other, and we record it, and we sell it for other people's entertainment.
True. Also, a big thank you over to our partners at Jetpack Comics and Games, located in downtown Rochester. They're pretty heckin' cool. Got some cool people and some cool stuff. They have exactly what you'd expect. You got comics, you got individual issues, you got new stuff, you got some back issues, you got the sale room, you got collected editions, you got some statues, some knickknacks.
Posters.
They do have posters.
A lot of signed posters.
True. You got some assorted Jetpack swaggeroo. And some cool people to talk to if you are bored or just want to not be at home. I'm not projecting at all. I don't spend too much time in there talking to nerds at all. So next week we will be discussing The Dark Knight.
Master Race.
I was trying to figure out how to phrase it because every time the book gets republished, the name gets tweaked.
What?
Because even the second book was like DK2, and it's like Dark Knight Strikes Again.
Oh, yeah.
Batman, Dark Knight Strikes Again, and so I have to. Every book is dumb and quirky like that. Yeah, Dark Knight 3, Master Race.
Batman PC Gamer. Continue.
Yes. So next week, all three of us will be discussing Dark Knight 3, Master Race, which came out in 2015. Yes, so that'll be done. We will discuss it with Colin. There'll be a lot of reading, I feel like.
That's it for Frank Miller's Batman run, right?
No?
Ah, crap, there's Golden Child or whatever, right?
We got more. But, to be fair, most of the rest of them are at least at the quality of last... The next ones are actually okay, so it won't be all pain. I swear.
The pain is over.
No, not yet.
Dang it.
The dreams are not gone. Tune in next week whilst we discuss more Batman. And then we'll do it again the week after that, because there's always more Batman. The real Batman are the friends we made along the way. Please kill me. That was really bad.
I just bumped the mic.
Jacob! No!
You're the one editing, so...
No! I hate you. From the 80s.
Very specific.
I think it's 89? Let me pull that up. I can add a meme.
Thank you. You're welcome. Whatever.
Whatever. It's a woman.
Symbiote. I have to say it every time you say it.
Like a turd in the wind.
That one's not bad. I'm just trying to find more. There's a lot of porn. I want the frigging comic book.
You're complaining because there's porn.
Cut that.
No.
Oh my gosh.
Spencer in editing, if you cut it, you're a bitch. See, now I won't cut.
Well, I watched the...
Wait, we're doing two? What?
Yeah, I said that.
I thought because we were sharing Black Widow, we weren't going to do another one.
I thought for sure I said that, and you were like, yes.
I thought that, no. I thought that would mean, I don't have anything. No, fuck.
I guess we don't have to.
Because I thought that's what you're like. Oh, we could do Black Widow, and then because we wouldn't have to do another thing, something like that. Want to share Black Widow as a talking point this week, and then talk about 2 individual points. Never mind, I'm dumb. Damn it. Fine, go for it. Ask me questions. So, go.
I have a question. We can just skip.
Wait, have I read anything? Is there anything I can pull out of my ass?
High Republic.
No, I need more time. I need more time on that.
All right, so wrap it up.
Hold up. I might have watched something. Let me flick through my Goodreads real quick.
One time, you don't have a long ass list of topics.
Because I've been blowing through them lately. Oh! Wait, did I talk about Hellblazer last week?
Nope.
Oh, shit! Okay, no, we're good. I didn't remember if I talked about that or not.
Give me pictures of Spider-Man!
Superman Year One.
Ugh, year one. The guy at Jetpack was trying to not sell you that book when you
I
bought
know.
it.
That
I
was
was like,
so funny.
Why are you buying this from us? You don't have to do this. That's how cool Jetpack is. They advise you against poor decisions.
Yeah, and then I was like, Kyle, I like pain. And then he got really uncomfortable.
But he understood.
True.
It's a very understanding group behind the counter at Jetpack Comics and Games in Rochester, New Hampshire.
Very, very true.